when it's time that he's not working. He's not trying to look at these negative news stories. So thank you for talking about community of joy. So with that being said, tell us a little bit more about the Youth Advisory Board, what inspired its creation, and what makes this program different from other youth leadership opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. This program was really rooted from the realization that we oftentimes spend a lot of time designing programs for youth and consistently kind of telling them what they should do, who they should be, what they should learn, how they should learn. But we don't have as many kind of shared spaces of learning, of development, of dialogue, of action oriented care. And so we wanted to change that with this program. Our youth advisory board creates a space where young people don't just attend events, but they really shape them. They're co learners, collaborators, co
Mm.
laborers in the space. They learn about health equity and violence prevention, public health concepts, right, like the socio-ecological model and all of those things. But they really get to kind of shape the action learning piece of that and kind of think about where they find themselves in their communities, right? When we think about the socio-ecological model, right? In what ways is it violent that in some spaces they don't have green spaces to go and play?
Mm.
And how does that inform how they view their communities or their self-concept, right? Their worthiness, their value. And so we provided a space for them to be able to share in real time how they feel about the built environment and the communal environment in which they find themselves in here in Chicago, and to think about solutions towards a brighter future. I think what makes this program different is also that we don't necessarily see them as future leaders in training when it
Mm.
comes to our youth that are participants in the program. They're leaders right now. And I think that's a shift in being able to also give credence to their experiences, right? Their lived experiences, their intellect, their brilliance, and their perspectives, and to understand that they don't just, deserve a seat at the table. They are the table, and we're building better tables with them in mind, and with them alongside us. And so we're not, just trying to create a space where folks can do something else to build a resume, which is really
Mm.
important as they think about college and whatnot, but we're really trying to build confidence in their civic engagement and their
Mm.
leadership, and then being able to see themselves as a part of the healthcare system and a part of the community that even lives beyond our healthcare system.
No, thank you so much, Brianna. And again, I appreciate hearing and uplifting it. In fact, you all are leaders right now, and this is about co-creating space and really shared learning and being action oriented. And Mr. White, thank you again for being here. I know you worked an overnight shift in the emergency room, but at the same time, you do some amazing work partnering with some initiatives led by Dr. Abdullah Pratt at University of Chicago Medicine and Dr. Johari Shuk. So just your professional work really focuses on helping individuals and families recover after experiencing violence. How does investing in young people before a major crisis occurs complement the work that you do in the ER every day?
Thank you for that question, and thank you guys again for having me. It's a pleasure. Um, that is a great question, and kind of like what Brianna said, is when healthcare does not just start within the hospital, we think about that on the same spectrum. Is trauma, violence doesn't just start when the gun goes off or when the patient comes into the ER. It has festered, it has accumulated over years in time in unstable environments. It has accumulated where poverty has continued to persist, where underserved communities, schools, neighborhoods, lacks of parks and educational access systems are in place. So when we think about that aspect, um, what our goal is to not just be interventionalist, but preventionalist.
Mm.
What I like to always think about is like intervention and prevention are just two missions on different sides of the traumatic situation. So our job is to make sure that there is no kids or youth that come into us as trauma patients in the first place. And how do we do that is addressing those root causes through the Youth Advisory Board, by access to healthcare education, by access to medical professionals where they get a chance to talk, be mentored, ask questions, get a sense of value about what they think about healthcare should be, and their voice being heard. Um, in communities where they feel like maybe their voice is not heard, where they don't get an opinion, where they don't get a say so on this building or data center or something like that that's put next door to their home that can cause harm or just some type of inconvenience, where they get a chance to look at these things, decide what is the health for their community, be involved in the conversation at the table as leaders, and then that also creates a sense of valueness for them, for their community, and they a sense of that they want to be involved. Additionally, I like to think about also these programs. They give kids time that they are learning and involved with things instead of giving them idle time where there's so much influence from social media, from the streets, from what peers and friends are doing that can also get them in trouble or just lead them down the wrong path. So I was always told, even as a like a kid, like you need to be involved in something. Like just don't sit around and do something. So even in my upbringing, it was like, okay, I played basketball and that really kept me out of trouble because they had rules, they had eligibility, they had protocols and things of that nature. So I learned that even outside of basketball, when I wasn't playing or on the court or anything like that, I had to conduct myself in a certain way, and I had to carry myself in a certain way that when I wanted to play basketball, wanted to be a part of this program, that I was able to do that and not jeopardize that. So I think when we put kids and youth in these programs, that it gives them a sense that I belong to something. I'm being mentored or coached by somebody, and I have to watch how I conduct myself or things that I'm involved in, and it gives me a sense of value and belonging.
Okay. No, thank you so much, Mr. White. I really appreciate that. And, again, hearing about that access not only to mentors in the medical field, but just the programming in general. And I really appreciate, thinking about the work that you do in the emergency room, supporting survivors of violence, bereaved families, understanding that this, as Ms. Brianna mentioned earlier, is really about this social ecological model. And so what we mean by that is that there are things that are happening at the societal level first, right, that create the conditions, that it's not about individuals making bad decisions, right, but it's actually about an entire ecology, right? So whether it goes down to, as you mentioned, having opportunities in the community or not having opportunities in the community, family members being able to have to do so much to keep their children safe because of upstream issues that go back to policies and practices that have been really shaped by racism,
Yeah.
right? That really contribute to why the city of Chicago looks like a tale of two cities.
Yeah.
With that being said, what I hear again is around providing opportunities for youth, but not only that, but equitable opportunities for their voice to be heard. So thank you for sharing that. So now we're going to pass it to Mr. Matthew. Yes, a rising junior. Matthew, so before joining the Youth Advisory Board, what were your expectations?
Well, first, I would like to thank WVN and Uchicago Medicine for this experience. Before the Youth Advisory Board, I had sort of an individualized mindset kind of towards furthering myself and my aspirations to becoming a physician. But I left the Youth Advisory Board with a desire to learn how I can give back, not only when I'm a doctor, but now as a teenager. There were a few moments where I knew this experience was going to be special. Lectures about leadership development, civic impact, safety, and coalition building, as well as presentations from Mr. White on violence prevention. Group shareouts contributed to making this experience special as well. I often think adults brush past what we have to say. However, the Youth Advisory Board provided a place for us to be heard. The adults made sure that you knew your voice mattered and that you can make an impact in your community. This is where I knew this experience was going to be special. I was able to implement the ideas in real time, and I was involved in Uchicago H Prep over this past winter.
Mm.
H Prep was where I learned about Stop the Bleed from Dr. Abdullah Pratt. These two experiences came together and empowered me to lead a project in my own school.
Mm.
I would not have been able to have the confidence to start something like this and bring people around the table like Mr. Julius Henry at my school without the lessons learned at the Youth Advisory Board.
Thank you, thank you. So tell us a little bit more about, a key experience connected to that involvement in Youth Advisory Board that really made this a special experience.
Yes, so mainly it was during one of our Youth Advisory Board meetings when everyone was going to present about what they were doing in their community, and a fellow peer of mine, Isaiah, presented. That really empowered me and was very inspirational.
Mm.
And I feel that that kind of helped me give the extra boost of confidence, as well as the adults around me helping me get to where I wanted to be.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Matthew. And last but certainly not least, we have our rising senior at Gwendolyn Brooks College Prep, Miss Jocelyn Johnson. So, Jocelyn, what's been your biggest takeaway from participating in the Youth Advisory Board?
Yes, well, thank you for that question. First and foremost, I want to say that I've been so blessed to be a part of the Youth Advisory Board for this past year. It's really been a great experience, something invaluable that I will be staying involved in and looking for in other places. But my biggest takeaway from my experience in YAB was to be hyper aware of the needs of my community. Growing up in a community plagued by violence and various health disparities, you kind of become used to it in a sense, so you don't know that this is not normal, this is not healthy for my community. And it's important to put yourself in spaces like the Youth Advisory Board where they teach you to take action as a member of the youth, that you don't have to wait until you're older, till you graduate high school to make a change. So that was my biggest takeaway, to be vigilant of what's going on in my community, and really that my voice is power right now and I don't have to wait until I get a degree or I graduate or anything to make change.
Well, thank you, thank you. And so, just being hyper aware of what was going on in your community and making those connections. And so, I'm going to take it back to you. You, Jocelyn, and Matthew have spent time learning directly from each other, from some of the healthcare professionals, some of our community leaders that were brought in, local but also national leaders. Was there a particular experience or session or a speaker, anything that deeply inspired you, and help us understand?
Yes, so one thing that really stuck out to me at an event I really enjoyed with the Youth Advisory Board was the pregame session.
Mm.
And what that was basically the Youth Advisory Board, along with other community-based programs, got together before a Bulls game. And we learned about like violence prevention in our community and community violence and trauma and stop the bleed, like Matthew mentioned. And that was really, first of all, it was really fun to get to be around people my age, but it was really empowering and good to see other youth coming together and sharing our thoughts in a space like that, where no one felt ashamed to share out, no one felt nervous. And it was just really interesting and cool to see different career paths and also learn about what everybody had to say regarding violence in the community and how we can stop it, more so how we can prevent it. So that was a really standout experience to me in the Youth Advisory Board.
Awesome, awesome. No, thank you, Jocelyn. And again, I got to shout out Mr. White, who leveraged the funding that we had from Chicago Sports Alliance that was really directed towards strengthening mental health support for survivors of violence. And Mr. White and of course, Dr. Pratt, who's one of our city, if not national leaders in this work, leveraged these pre-game opportunities before the Chicago Bulls. So Matthew, I'm going to pass it to you. So what about you? Is there a specific experience that really, or a session or a speaker that deeply inspired you?
Yes, so there was a session. It was titled Leading with a Purpose, Communication and Influence. It was a session that focused on YAB members talking about projects that they were going to lead in their school community or just community as a whole. One of my YAB peers, Isaiah, like I mentioned earlier, he presented his efforts to develop a haptic emergency alert medical watch.
Mm.
He also mentioned how important your voice is and how important it is to not let anyone tell you otherwise. For me, it was very helpful to see another teenager having the confidence to step out, solve a problem, and believe in himself.
Well, thank you so much. That's incredible. And it looks like we have a call-in. Oh, thank you so much. All right. Twyla's putting me in check here. So I want to remind everybody you're hearing from these amazing youth. Please call in. Call us at 773 591 1690. Again, that's 773 591 1690. And, Matthew, thank you. What I love and what I'm hearing about is this opportunity for shared voice, co creation, and your inspiration was drawn by another student, right? Jocelyn, your inspiration drawn by collectively the conversations that were happening with other youth as well. And so, Kenny, I'm going to pass it back to you. You've watched these young leaders grow throughout the year. What have they taught you about the next generation and how to support them as rising healthcare and community leaders?
Yeah. Well, I think Brianna alluded to a portion a bit of about not talking at youth or
Mm.
not lecturing them, but letting them speak up for themselves and being involved in the planning. And it's really like it's been inspiring to me myself to like see these youth and some of them like join the YAB and going from the quiet students that just sit in there listening to being the ones to asking the questions about what's happening in their community, what's happening in their schools, what is the University of Chicago doing, um, and just asking those all these important questions and then going from being quiet to taking action. So that's one of the things like I've been proud of to see them grow and just continue to be grow as young leaders and take initiative. Another thing is I think it's been very vital to see that they're not just individuals that we're trying to model after ourselves as professionals and leaders in different spaces and practitioners, but help them pull out of them what is unique about themselves. Because I think we all have different journeys, we all have different backgrounds, some from the same neighborhoods and
Mm.
things of that nature. But I think the passions of these youth that we've seen them bring to the table, bring to the conversation, we help support and fuel that without trying to tailor it to our own
Mm.
passions and things of that nature. So even so like Matthew alluded to that was inspiring as well was one of our YAB students, Isaiah, who created the hearing aid so that individuals who had hearing impairment would be alerted for whenever emergency vehicles are passing by or in the proximity.
Mm.
And that was really inspiring me. I feel like one of the first of its kind, and it got national level attention, but it also inspired the other youth in the group to take up their own initiatives, ask questions. How can I implement it in my school? Who do I send an email to? What administrator do I talk to? So that's one of the things that I've learned is even as an adult and as a professional and a practitioner, we are learning so much more from our youth. And as they learn from us, it's like an exchange of education. It's like an exchange of inspiration and experiences. And I never want to get to that space where I feel like I'm too old to learn from people that's younger from me. So
Yeah.
I'm just grateful to be around them.
Likewise, and the gratitude is magnified by me just being around all of you. So thank you so much. And Kenny, what I really appreciate what you said and what I take away from this is that our youth are not a monolith. There's no one type of youth, right? Sometimes we talk about them as though it's just all the youth,
Yeah.
right? And with that being said, they're diverse voices, diverse experiences, and it's very important to make sure that that passion is not tailored, as you said, to meet adult needs, but how we could support their needs and their amazing initiatives. And so, Brianna, I'm going to pass it back to you. Um, One phrase we often hear is that young people are our future. The youth advisory seems to suggest, in fact, that they are present. Why is it important to invite youth into conversations about community health and decision making now rather than waiting until adulthood?
That's such a good question. And that's actually a phrase that I challenge every time I hear it.
Yeah.
Because I just think about my own experience being a Chicago youth at one point, right? I grew up in Chicago, born and raised. I am a product of so many incredible spaces and programs here in Chicago, from the Chicago Public Schools to After School Matters. Shout out Coomba Links, right? Shout out One City or One Summer Chicago, just so many different programs. And I think about my own journey to adulthood, and I was a leader then. My peers were leaders then. I remember being in high school and being president of my African American club and protesting in the streets after Trayvon Martin was killed. And so we were leaders then. And so I think about the journeys of, our young leaders today. And while they are our future, they are also our present. And so I don't necessarily see a world where we can build a better world without them, right? Where they're standing beside us, but they're mute. I think that's a real missed opportunity, because they're experiencing our present culture, our present political climate, our present violence, our present opportunities alongside us. And so I think waiting until adulthood to incorporate their ideas, to amplify their voices and their experiences is a real missed opportunity, and it sends a message that says, you won't be valuable until you're older. Your contributions won't be looked at as something that can move the needle in promoting joy and communal safety and well-being and health until then, not now. And I think that's a really dangerous message. I think we invite people into our worlds by being open to what they have to say. And so when we invite young people to make decisions with us, we're not just doing them a favor, we're really making better decisions because they're beside us, making better decisions because we have their voices and their interests and their lived experience and their brilliance in mind and in action. And so I think something incredible happens when, a young person realizes that an adult is genuinely listening to them and really cares about what they have to say and what they bring. And it allows for us to be and build a community space where we all feel seen, heard, known, and loved. And I think that's something that is revolutionary in our communities and in the spaces that we share, especially here in Chicago.
Thank you, Brianna. So let's listen up, listeners. Again, as Brianna said, let's not miss out on this opportunity. Let's not miss out on the opportunity to make better decisions now. Brianna, you shared examples of your leadership when you were younger, right? And so ultimately, let's not miss out on the opportunity to see our youth, to hear them, to know them, and to love them. With that being said, we got another cohort coming up. So we're talking to Jocelyn and my man Matthew about their experiences in cohort 1. But the Youth Advisory Board began as an initiative out of the Hyde Park campus, the hospital, but now it's expanding to the greater Southland community that will include our Ingle system. So with that being said, Brianna, what are your hopes for the next cohort? And I'd love to hear from Brianna and Kenny about what you would like to share with any young people who are interested in applying and community members that are interested in supporting. As we said, this is a table that's created with our youth, right? Deciding how they want to engineer that table. So this isn't just a call out for our youth to be involved in the next cohort, but our entire community. But Brianna, what are your hopes going forward for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I genuinely hope that this becomes more than a program and really a movement where youth are able to see themselves in healthcare, in civic engagement, as our next aldermen, as our next researchers at the forefront of cancer care and at the forefront of trauma-informed care and healing-centered engagement, in leadership, in conversations that shape our communities, and to know that they belong there, right? That they're not being invited for a moment, but that this is a movement towards them having and feeling belonging and also bringing others along with them. I'm a millennial and literally on the cusp, and it's crazy to me when I think about the fact that I'm no longer the youngin, right? That I'm now helping to build programs for those behind me, and I hope that this program is one that can really catalyze that desire to build for the next and to build alongside the next. So I'm looking forward to seeing Matthew and seeing Jocelyn, right, grab the hand of the freshman, right,
Mm,
that's coming up and say, have you heard about the Youth Advisory Board? And to see what happens next.
awesome. And so, how do folks find out more about it?
Yeah, so we currently have applications open. They'll be open until Sunday, August 23rd.
Mm,
We really didn't want to create too many barriers to entry for this program as well. This year, we will be accompanying the application with an interview process for those that are selected to interview. But the application is not long, it's not hard. We really just want to know who you are, where you come from, and why you're interested in this opportunity, and to get to know you before kind of having a further conversation via the interview about the program and what folks can expect. So the application is live. We
mm,
also have information across socials via Instagram, I believe Facebook, LinkedIn. They can also reach out to us directly. My name is Brianna Scott Banks, as was mentioned before, and so you can find me across socials
mhm.
as well. And I'm kind of the point person in terms of any questions that anyone may have with regards to our Youth Advisory Board. We're also really excited. This year, we have more opportunities for a lot of in person engagement,
Mm.
so there will be virtual, hybrid, and in person opportunities for youth engagement with this upcoming cohort. And so we're really excited for those innovative spaces that we'll share together.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And before I pass the mic back to our youth leaders in this space to close us out on your call um, to the youth and our community members, Kenny, what are your hopes for the next cohort?
My hopes is that not only the Youth Advisory Board is just impacting individual students, but it's also an example to what we call evidence-based programs. I want to give a shout out to the University of Chicago Crime Lab that did a partnership with BAM, Becoming a Man, which is a program that's focused on young black males. And they did a research collaboration over a decade where they found that 45 their program that have focused on mentorship with males caused a 45% reduction in violent crime and arrests, a 50% reduction in violent, a 45% reduction in violent crime arrests in the first study, and then a 50% reduction in violent crime in the second study, and a 19 percent increase in on-time high school graduation. And even though that program is more so focused on black males, I think the YAB program is something that it, it also expands the mentorship across many students,
Mhm.
across sites, and it causes our young leaders to also push healthcare initiatives themselves in their own communities,
Mm.
in their churches, in their homes, in their community-based organizations. Everything outside of the hospital, we want them to take what they learn at the Youth Advisory Board outside that space. But additionally, I would say to the students that are in YAB, a part of YAB, applying for YAB, do not disqualify yourself because you feel like you don't have the credentials or the qualifications or the resume to push public health initiatives, or just be a change agent in your community.
Mhm.
Don't disqualify yourself. If you have a passion, if you have a heart, if you are human and you care about your community, you qualify to be a leader. You qualify to push those initiatives forward, voice them, and gather support around them. So that's my suggestion to the students, and also to the community, is that the community and even the individuals that want to apply to the YAB are all assets to their community. They're
Mhm.
all assets to the health of how we as a people, we as a family, become healthy. So I always say, like, I always try to say, uh, you don't build a community where you don't build a healthy community. You build people, and those healthy people build a healthy community.
Yes.
So making um, having youth be invested into in all aspects, where they become the future leaders and professionals and experts to this thing that we are combating, from gun violence to from systematic racism, in hopes that later on down the line, when they become our age, that they are not battling at the same starting line or starting point that we are at right now.
Right.
They have already pushed the needle forward because they've been at the table since they were 15 and 16 years old. So now when they're 26, 27, they're tackling a lot of different other aspects to what they've learned from the Youth Advisory Board.
Okay. No, thank you so much. And so again, I'm hearing like the power of mentorship, and wanting to see evidence coming out of that, and really encouraging the youth to continue to disseminate their ideas. We've heard some great examples from our young youth advisory board leader, Isaiah, but other programs that go back into their community. And then, I'm gonna turn it to Jocelyn. One thing that Kenny said is, don't disqualify yourself. Don't have this imposter syndrome, like, oh, I can't be a part of this, or I'm not good. What would you say, Jocelyn, if a high school student's listening today and wondering if they should apply? What would you say to encourage them?
Yeah, so I would definitely encourage them to 100% apply. I feel like as Black youth specifically, it's really easy for us to get discouraged and see things like advisory board. Like, I don't have the credentials to be on any type of advisory board. And that's kind of how I felt initially applying to YAB, but I'm so glad I did. And another thing I would say that stands out about the program is that it really gives you a space to ground yourself. I remember rushing from after school from cheer practice, running to my car, and then I would get on YAB meetings, and Brianna would be leading deep breathing, and I would be like, I needed this because the chaos of everyday life, it gets really, really intense. So the Youth Advisory Board kind of gave me a space to kind of come back down to earth and really be in touch with myself. It also gave me a space, which it can do for prospective members, to share my ideas. Like I mentioned earlier, it gets really easy to feel like as youth, your ideas are not as valuable, or they're not going to be heard, because we sometimes live in a space where youth are seen as below adults, and so we're not always used to being listened to. But being in the Youth Advisory Board and being in a space where the adults want to hear what I have to say and are really listening and want to acknowledge me as not like a ward, but kind of like, I want to say, coworker in a sense. But it was a really nice space to be in, and I encourage anybody who's thinking about it or on the fence to apply.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. How about you, Matthew?
Yeah, I 100% agree with Jocelyn. Definitely apply, especially if you have a desire to make impact in your community. I would say it's also great for exposure to new topics. For example, because of the Youth Advisory Board, I've grown an interest in researching healthcare disparities. And it's great exposure to different healthcare professionals as well, such as doctors, nurses, social workers, public health professionals, and so much more. I would just say it doesn't hurt to apply. It's an extension of learning about yourself while exploring other topics. You may come out bolder, wanting to get involved and take a chance. And I think having that skill is invaluable as we go forth and try to make change in this world.
Well, thank you. I love that extension of learning about yourself. I mean, isn't that what meaningful living is, right? Thank you so much, Matthew. Thank you, Jocelyn. Looks like we might have a caller on. Is that correct? All right. So let's try to thank you again. And we've got about less than 15 minutes before we close off. So I want to encourage our listeners to call in again, 773-591-1690. And with that being said, we're going to open up to our first caller. Hello.
This is Kevin Banks. Thank you all so much for making the time and space to have this conversation. I wish the Youth Advisory Board was in existence when I was Matthew and Jocelyn's age. My original question that I called in for, you all actually tackled. So my question for Matthew and Jocelyn would be, in 3 to 5 years' time, what would you hope your legacy within the YAB is, and what growth would you like for the YAB to experience in terms of how it impacts the work that the city does to recognize the power of youth voice and youth leadership in the present day?
Thank you, Mr. Banks. So Jocelyn, you want to open that up?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you for that question. In 3 to 5 years' time, being the first cohort of the Youth Advisory Board, I really hope to see more youth step forward and more youth apply. After watching us go through the process, I really hope people like I said, realize that they do have a voice and that they are welcome in these spaces where society might tell us we're not. I really hope that the city, we can, like Brianna said, make this more than just like a advisory board and expand this program. I would really hope to see Chicago get more involved with the Urban Health Initiative at the University of Chicago, as it's been so important and helpful on my journey throughout high school for me. And I just really want to see more youth coming out and sharing their voice, because I feel like we all have opinions. We all have opinions on the city. We all have opinions on these teen takeovers, for example, and kids just feel like we're not in the space or we don't have the right to share them. And I would just encourage the youth, like I said, thinking about applying, or just the youth in general, to know that that's not true. We need to join programs like this. We need to go to our city board meetings and speak to those in power so that we can, again, get to where we want to be in the future and just share our voices. So
Awesome. And
yeah,
so to
thank
get
you.
back to the question again, and thank you, um, what about your own legacy in about 3 to 5 years?
Oh, like where I want
Yeah,
to be?
yeah.
Well, after leaving the youth advisory board, I hope to go to undergrad, pursue public health because I do have an interest in health disparities. Yeah, possibly get my MPH and also get my MD. And I feel like having that public health perspective as a doctor will help me be a physician that views patients as more than just a number, more than just a chart, and will really help me bring it back to my community and improve community health, which is what I want to do in the long run.
Awesome. Thank you, Jocelyn. How about you, Mr. Matthew?
Yeah, I think in 3 to 5 years' time, being the first cohort, just like Jocelyn said, I definitely want to see more youth. I would love to see more youth applying to this program. It's very beneficial. I would love to see us branch out to even more places, not only the city of Chicago, but other states possibly.
Okay.
Gain recognition. And my legacy, just like she said, my major is actually undecided, but I hope to go to undergrad. Then I want to pursue my MD. I'm also on the fence of pursuing my MPH before getting my MD. But exactly what she said, I definitely want to see the youth join. It's great if it makes you feel heard. You can make a difference, definitely.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Matthew. Thank you, Jocelyn. And now, so we're going to get to a little final lightning round before we close out. And I just want to thank you all again coming here on our first Saturday in the month of August. And I know Saturdays can be incredibly competitive for your time. So thank you for taking time. And so I'm going to start with Mr. Kenny White. What gives you hope for the future of our city and our Southland communities, excuse me?
What gives me hope for the future is how our organizations, how our Chicago public schools and Southland schools are responding to the youth voices that are coming to them. I think that's so amazing, and I think, like Jocelyn mentioned, from the teen trends, like they have been labeled as youth and teens have been a part of the problem, but many times we forget to label them as part of the solutions. So that really gives me hope that when they are at the table, and even like I've seen a news story about some of the Kenwood students that had vowed to turn around the teen trends and things of that nature, so that they wouldn't be negative or there wouldn't be conflict. There wouldn't be conflict that continuously happens at some of these trends, but they would be a part of the solution. So that has given me hope, and the response that a lot of adults across our social ecological network are responding to the youth and their voices.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. White. How about you, Ms. Brianna?
Yeah, I think every day I meet a person, including young people, that are committed to the concept of lighting up their corner of the world. And as long as those people exist, I know we're going to be okay. I think, as Kenny mentioned earlier, we are making up communities of healthy people, right? Healthy people beget healthy communities. And so the more that I just see folks leaning into the joy of lighting up their corner of the world, of doing their work alongside the next person, I know that we're building healthier and stronger, healing focused communities that will be beneficial for us all.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Mr. Matthew, what gives you hope for the future of our city and our Southland communities?
Honestly, what gives me hope for this city is the curiosity that us teenagers have and Gen Z. as well as the time and effort that adults put into us. Um, I think investment is key, and the adults investing in our time and their time, listening to our voice, that can definitely get us somewhere. And our curiosity, being able to bring up certain questions in this world, would definitely be able to push the city further.
Well, thank you. I love that. Thank you, Matthew. Curiosity. Appreciate you. How about you, Jocelyn?
What makes me hopeful for the Chicagoland and Southland community in the future is kind of seeing the youth's passion grow and develop for the betterment of our community. I feel like a lot of people that I'm surrounded with, we're starting to develop like our our own person, like get our sense of selves and like develop career goals. And what's really inspiring to me is that as we go down these roads and kind of decide what we want to do in the future, a common theme I hear is, and I want to do this so I can come back and help my community. So that's what's really been kind of inspiring me, yeah, to keep going and keep pushing forward along with my peers that we want to come back and help our community in the future.
Jocelyn, what a powerful way to close us out. Thank you. Coming back and helping our community. So, today we've been reminded, and thank you all, that the University of Chicago Medicine's Urban Health Initiative, improving the safety and health of our community, goes beyond just the practice of medicine. It also involves prevention, mentorship, leadership, opportunities, healing practice, and, as you mentioned, Matthew, true investment in young people. Applications for the upcoming cohort 2026-27 for the Youth Advisory Board are now open. If you're a student between the ages of 14 and 19 or know a young person who wants to grow as a leader while making a difference in their community, we encourage you to apply. This has been the Uchicago Medicine Community Health Focus Hour on WVON 1690 AM, powered by the Urban Health Initiative of the University of Chicago, at the forefront. As always, I have to shout out our executive producer, Twyla Jenkins, keeps me in check and makes sure I'm doing things right. Thank you, Twyla, Ms. Jenkins, our production manager, Titus Williams, as well as our board engineer, Mr. Robert Taylor. Join us next Saturday at 1 p.m. as we continue to bring health conversations to the forefront. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Thank you so much for listening.